Welcome to AM with DNK. Thank you for joining me on this Saturday night live stream, episode number 30th, Leveraging Startup Ecosystem for Business Growth. I am Dilnawaz Khan, founder of Codesign Labs and Power Deck. And before I jump and start the conversation and I move ahead in the session, let me quickly share my screen with all of you so that you can see and enjoy the presentation as well that I've prepared for all of you. All right, all right, all right. Yep. Yep. So quickly introducing myself, my name is Dilnawaz Khan. I'm founder of Codesign Labs and Power Deck. And before we jump into the session, don't forget to subscribe the channel, like the video, and make sure that you also post all your questions into the chat. And I will be answering them as and when possible. And of course, if you want to know more about me, follow my journey, make sure you follow my Instagram and LinkedIn. You follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn. The ticker has my handles, right? So basically, as I said, today's session is going to be on leveraging startup ecosystem for business growth. So what we will be covering in today's session, we will primarily be covering what is startup ecosystem. We'll broadly be talking about startup ecosystem, and also most importantly, why should you care, is because we are going to look at startup ecosystem from the entrepreneur's point of view. So that is what we are going to do today. Also, we are going to look at the components of what makes and creates a great startup ecosystem. Now, why is it important? Is because okay, so let's wait. As and when I move ahead in the session, I will tell you why it is important to understand and explore the components of a great startup ecosystem. Then, of course, we will be speaking a bit about why should you care about the entire ecosystem. Why is it important to have a look at the entire ecosystem from the bird's eye point of view? And how can you leverage, based on your journey, based on what stage are you in, how can you leverage the startup ecosystem for your own business growth? And last but not the least, as a bonus discussion, we will be talking about evaluating unicorns in India. And why are we even talking about unicorns at such an early stage? I will tell you the reason why. But just to keep you hooked, just to keep you excited, India roughly has 30 plus unicorns at this point in time, out of which 11 came in the pandemic, in the COVID times, and 4 of them are already new to the club. So 4 or 3, I'm not sure of the number. I'll quickly check and get back to you on that during the presentation. But there are 3 or 4 more unicorns that have joined the club just in January and February. This is 27th of February we are sitting on, and 4 more unicorns. That means 4 more companies with a valuation of $1 billion have joined the unicorn club. So India is the third largest ecosystem in the country, and we are really, really growing at a very fast speed, right? So if you are somebody who's a student aspiring to become an entrepreneur, if you are somebody who's already an entrepreneur discovering or into very early stage, if you are somebody who's a great stage entrepreneur, you definitely need to understand how ecosystem works and function. And also in this session, what I'll try to do is I'll also try and break the myth for all of you, because a lot of times people worry about wrong things at wrong place in time. For example, I have been very, very busy from past 2 weeks, very, very active into delivering multiple sessions. And one of the questions that I hear and see from students and very early stage entrepreneurs is that they worry about valuation and they worry about funding, wherein they don't even have the validation. So the problem is we need to know when to hit the nail, right? So once we understand, once we figure out that what is the right time to tap what resource, we understand the journey, have mental clarity, then you will be able to utilize all the possible resources available to you in the best way possible. So quickly summarizing everything for all of you, welcome to the episode, Leveraging Startup Ecosystem for Business Growth. We will be talking about startup ecosystem. I'll help you deconstruct, understand what is a startup ecosystem. We will be talking about components of what is a great startup ecosystem. We will be talking about why you should care about startup ecosystem as an entrepreneur. Also, will talk about how can you leverage startup ecosystem. And last but not the least, we will be evaluating the Indian startup ecosystem and the unicorns. So before we jump ahead, before we move ahead, I would suggest and request all of you to please make sure you like the video, and also, my friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so far. Okay. And most importantly, please utilize chat well. Chat is for you. That is the place, that is the community where you guys can talk to each other, talk to me, post in your questions. Make sure you be courteous with everybody in the chat. Do not spam chat, do not get into random arguments, but please make sure you utilize chat well. Be here till the end. Post your questions, post your comments in chat, talk to each other, enjoy the chat. So as I said, I have a great session lined up for you. So all right, let's get started. And of course, you can go and follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn. So let's begin. So if you are here, if you are excited, let's begin the conversation. Let's begin the conversation around building a startup ecosystem, leveraging startup ecosystem for early stage entrepreneurs. All right, let's get started. Fantastic. Okay. So there's a very famous quotation which says that it takes a community to raise a child, right? Similarly, a child is always raised by a community. It takes a community effort to raise a child, right? The surroundings, the environment which nurtures him, and the 100 other factors that raises a child. Similarly, startup is not raised by a single entrepreneur. It's the team, it's the business environment, it is the government policy, it is the funding agency. There are hundreds of factors that creates basically a successful startup. It is an ecosystem effort and not anything else. So basically, it takes an ecosystem to raise a startup. It is not an individual entrepreneur. You might take pride, you might think that it is an individual entrepreneur that runs and builds a great company, or is only and solely responsible for doing that, but that's not the case. It takes an ecosystem to raise a startup, and that is the fundamental thought we will keep in our mind while discussing today. So let me first of all ask you a question. All those who are watching me, let me ask you a question. What is the first thing that comes in your mind when I say startups in US? What is the first thing that comes in your mind when I use the word startups in US? What is the first thing that comes to your mind? Can any of you answer this particular thing? What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word startups in US? All right. A few of you have started posting your questions. That's absolutely fine, but I will be picking up question as and when I take a break from the part of the session I want to cover. So just be with me till the end. A product manufacturer made person. Okay, so what is the first thing that comes in your mind when I say the word startups in US? Technically, when I say the word startups in US, either you should be thinking about Microsoft, Google, Apple, Tesla for that matter, and competitions like that. So the award for this answer, the correct answer goes to Komal Joshi. Komal, absolutely right. Silicon Valley is the word that comes in your mind when we talk about startups in US. One word that represents startup in US is Silicon Valley. So let me ask you one more question. What is the first thing that comes in your mind when I say startups in India? What is that comes in your mind when we say the word startups in India? What is that thing that comes in your mind when I say startups in India? What is that one word? I'll give a few seconds pause so that you can reply, and then I will look at the answers. There is always a 10 to 15-second lag in our conversation because of online streaming, but that's absolutely fine. I will wait for you to reply. What is that word that comes in your mind when we talk about startups in India? JAC said Paytm Bangalore. Absolutely. So companies like Paytm, companies like Ola, companies like Uber, companies like Flipkart, most importantly, Flipkart, these are the words that come in our mind. And basically, the most important word that JAC Wale Bhaiya said, Bangalore. Yes, Bangalore is the word that comes in our mind when we talk about startups in India. The reason is Bangalore is and is still the Silicon Valley of India. The reason why I asked you this question is startups of any place, startups around any community, startups in any country are a direct proportion, are a resultant, are a outcome of the ecosystem of that place, right? no matter what country you are in, no matter what place you are in, startups in that place will always directly resonate with the ecosystem. It is the ecosystem that enables you to create success stories. Even if you look at the Indian demographics, right? When you look at the North Indian demographics, we do not have that many startup headquarters back in Jaipur, Rajasthan, Delhi, Gurgaon, all this North Indian area. Then then the collective amount of startup headquarters back in Bangalore, so you have more companies in Mumbai and Bangalore, and therefore it's a better ecosystem in general. That's the reason why Mumbai is called as a financial capital. That's why Bangalore is called a technical capital or IT capital, right? So the logic is startups are always directly proportional to the ecosystem, right? So now, in order to understand the startup journey and startup ecosystem and how can you leverage startup ecosystem for yourself, I would want you to kind of have a look at this particular diagram, which typically talks about the entire journey of a startup, right from the idea or the conceptualizing stage to the later stage. So let me quickly zoom in the screen for all of you. And if you I just want you to have a look at a broad graph. So basically, if you talk about graph, if you look at this graph broadly, any startup goes through three broad stages: formation, validation, and growth. I have been taking a workshop called Power Camp from a few days now for my entrepreneurs whom I am training. I am coaching on pitch decks and pitching. And one thing that I have again and again told all the entrepreneurs, that it is very very important to have a proof of concept or some sort of validation before you even grow, or before even you go out there and raise your first round of institutional capital fund, right? So you never go to a VC, or never go to an angel when you are into very early, if you can see my mouse movement, into formation stage, but rather you go to an institutional investors into growth stage. So typically, if you can visualize or figure out what is the startup journey, you basically are into formation stage, into very very early stage, -2 and -1. You then go into 1 2 3 at a validation stage, and last but not least is the growth stage, where you have figured out a product market fit, you have figured out a business model market fit, and then you go out to institutional investors, and then you raise your formal round of funding. The reason why I showed this particular graph to all of you out there is because we need to understand that different stages need different support. Now this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs get confused in, right? Every stage of a startup needs a different kind of a support. You very simply put cannot give you one very simple example. When you are an infant, when you are a newborn baby, when you are less than 6 months old, the only food you eat is milk, right? That is the only food source or the nutrition source you have, right? And when you grow, you need a proper nutritious balanced meal in order to survive, right? So just like how humans need different meals at different point in time, what will happen if you feed just milk, or that limited quantity of milk to a full grown adult, or vice versa? What will happen if if you feed a thali full of meal to a small infant? Both of them will technically die. So wrong money at wrong stage is also a startup killer. Understand that, and let me try and repeat that for you. Raising wrong money and raising wrong capital at wrong point in time is also a suicide for a startup. So you have to very very clearly understand, and this is the reason why I personally started this entire series. The reason why I started this series, at least my personal motivation, was to give the information and knowledge to Indian startup founders at very early stage, from the point of view so that they can understand things from the Indian context, right? We cannot simply copy paste international or US or Western ideas in India. We cannot simply copy their policies or their protocols, because India is a different beast altogether. It's a different ball game altogether. So it is very very important for us to understand how Indian investors function, how Indian government function, how Indian policies function, how Indian bureaucracy functions, and therefore we have to create a model that enables us to create a big company, or a big enough company, or a unicorn rather, right? So we need to understand different stage would need a different support, and therefore it is very 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 important for all of you to understand how startup ecosystem works, especially in the Indian context. So by the time we conclude today's session, I will try and give you a bird's eye view of Indian startup ecosystem from my point of view. When I say my point of view, I am somebody who's an entrepreneur who has been into the ecosystem for almost roughly 10, 12 years. I have built multiple companies around design technology and in startup incubation space. I've been a very, very active member of the startup Indian startup community, and I am currently working with a lot of startup founders. So that enables me to give you a broader perspective, from the Indian startup point of view. Does this make sense to you? If this makes sense to you, and if you think this is of value to you, please let me know in the comments and keep the chat warmed up. Keep on letting your questions, keep on giving your comments back to me. If you agree, absolutely fine, show me your thumbs up. If you disagree, do let me know. It is always great to have a conversation. It is always great to have a discussion around the points, and eventually we will learn somehow. All right, so moving ahead from this point of view, so therefore, as I said, it becomes very, very important to understand how startup ecosystem works, right? I hope this will now start making sense to you. So therefore, if I Google search and search the term startup ecosystem, how does a typical startup ecosystem looks like? Now again, what I'm going to show you has been picked up from Wikipedia, has been picked up from an international website, and then I will tell you how I personally feel Indian startup ecosystem is different from what international ecosystem would or should look like. All right. So let us first look at what is a typical general startup ecosystem and what do we see, what do we encounter when we simply search the term startup ecosystem. So this is how, and again, let me zoom in the screen for all of you so that you can see clearly. This is how a typical startup ecosystem, if you Google search, would look like. People will say there are support organizations, then big companies, universities, funding organizations, service providers, research organizations, and then in the middle you have idea, invention, and research agencies, startup at various stages, entrepreneurs, startup team members, investors, mentors, advisors, other entrepreneurial people, and people from related organization. Now, personally speaking, and this is my channel, this is my video, this is a personal opinion, right? This is not like a thumb rule, but this is what I personally feel. I think this information looks absolutely cluttered. In order to prepare this session, I have gone through so many white papers, I've gone through so many websites, and I figured out that the information there is so confusing that a first time entrepreneur cannot deconstruct or cannot use that information and translate that for himself and cannot convert it for his startup growth. All right. So let us look at what startupcommons.org says, and then we'll start looking at the entire ecosystem from our perspective of Indian entrepreneur, right? Of course, I'm also looking at the chat. Guys, I would suggest keep on posting your questions. I will take a pause in between. I will answer all your questions. The idea behind this entire session is to do conversation. That's the reason it's called AMA, right? I will be answering all your questions. Don't worry. Just keep on posting your questions. I will pick them up as and when I can, because I don't want to break the monologue or don't want to break the session for just picking up a question, because I want to kind of first finish a part so that people who are already here derives and takes certain value from the session. Does this make sense? I hope this makes sense to all of you, right? So moving ahead, right? So if I go by what Startup Commons has to say, typically composition of a startup ecosystem, and what we saw behind as well is ideas, invention, research organizations, startups at various stages, entrepreneurs, startup team members, angel investors, startup mentors, startup advisors, other entrepreneurial minded people, third people from other organizations with startup activities, and there's so much information already available out there, right? Now, startup ecosystem from entrepreneurs point of view and Indian entrepreneurs point of view. Before I jump into this, now this is the time I will pick up a few questions from the audience's side before I start talking about the most important and the most critical part of today's conversation, which is looking at the startup ecosystem, Indian startup ecosystem from Indian entrepreneurs point of view, and then leveraging it for your business growth, right? So let me quickly have a look at the chat, what's happening in the chat, and then I will move ahead. So first of all, let me thank all of you who have joined. Growth Tuber, Komal Joshi, JAC Wale Bhaiya, Mukul Shai, Komal, and Tanu Tiwari. Thank you so much. Sakmeer, thank you so much, all of you, for joining and tuning in tonight. If you haven't liked the video and subscribed the channel, please, guys, make sure you do that. My audience is my best critique. My audience is somebody that is basically will give me the will be able to give me the correct feedback. So make sure you are putting in all your questions and letting me know the feedback, right? So I'll quickly pick up the questions that have come my way before I jump into the main part, which, as you can see on the screen, let me again pull it for you, which is startup ecosystem from entrepreneurs point of view. Quickly picking up the questions. Can a college student build a company in 4 years? Okay, this is the question number one. How can a tier two, how can, okay, the two questions. Can a college student build a company in 4 years? Absolutely, you can build a company in 4 years. I have seen so many smart guys building company just in 2 years, or they started in third year and finished the company in fourth year, and by the time they were passing out, they were even able to raise institutional formal venture capital fund. So it is absolutely possible. If I have to answer in yes or no, yes, it is absolutely possible to build a company in 4 years, right? uh, Another question is from again JFA. How can a tier 2 college start can build a startup? All right, so if you are new to the channel, the first ever video I did on this channel was called Basics of Startup. If you go and scroll all the way down, right, the first ever video was Basics of Startup and how to get started. Go and watch that video. Also go and watch two more videos. One is Startup Idea Validation Techniques, and the last is Market Analysis. If you are able to watch those two videos, you will be able to figure out and create a blueprint for your own startup, as in whether the idea thinking is great fit or not, whether the idea that you've thought and the product you're building, whether it is required in the market or not. Once you start basically compiling all that information, I'm sure you will have enough material to take a call whether you can build a startup or not. All right, I hope this makes sense to you. And yes, I myself, I come from a tier 2 college in a tier 2 city, and I was a proud student entrepreneur, and I ran a company for 5 or 7 years before failing and restarting. So absolutely, yes, you can build a company no matter who you are, whether you are a tier 2 college guy, tier 3 college guy. All you need is basic awareness, basic intelligence, and kind of right ecosystem. And today's video is therefore going to help you a lot in figuring out what is the support system or ecosystem support available to you. All right, so it will for sure help you a lot. All right, now uh a product manufacturer made in and for us. I did not get, I'm not sure whether this is a comment or this is a suggestion. I'm not sure what does that mean. And quickly taking one or two more questions. Tanu has a question: how to hire good team and when to hire them? Tanu, I think talking about a team is altogether a different, discussion altogether. What I'll do is I'll plan one detailed video on hiring the core team and when to hire, how to hire. It's a great question. In fact, thank you so much to all of you guys for asking such intelligent questions and such important questions, because a lot of my videos have come out, a lot of my AMA sessions have come out from the questions you guys have posted. Because you guys, when you consume my content, you ask me questions, and sometimes I feel that these questions are basically the questions that need a detailed explanation rather than a 5-minute explanation, and then I create a video on top of it, right? So therefore, this is a great video, great question. But if you want to learn more about the co-founders and how to build the core team, I've already done a video on how to find co-founders and how to build a great team. Go and watch that video. If you stay till the end, I'll also show you where to find that video. It's already on the YouTube channel. All right. And last point that I'll pick up, and before I jump onto moving the session again, I don't want you to wait. I don't want you to be waiting for a long time. Tanu has another pointer which I'll quickly pin on the screen. As you told, USA startup is equal to Silicon Valley and Indian startup is equal to Bangalore. Should we make only our state in our mind? Is it good? Can we make more state like that? Okay, so it's a very interesting question. Let me do one thing. Let me finish the session and I'll pick this up in the end, because it's a very interesting question and might need certain discussions. Also, let me open this question to my audience and to the people who are in the chat already. What do you guys think about this question? What is your comment? What is your input? What do you think is your input to Tanu on this question? Go ahead, guys, post your comments in the chat. And maybe you guys can also share your inputs. All right, so let's quickly move ahead. I'm sure, I hope you are enjoying today's session. You are liking the information I'm sharing with all of you, right? So moving back onto startup ecosystem from entrepreneurs point of view, from Indian entrepreneurs point of view, what and how does a startup ecosystem look like from entrepreneurs point of view? This is on your screen. So I personally think that Indian ecosystem typically is divided into these seven broad categories. And in next 30 minutes, I will with you take a deep dive into each of these one categories one by one, right? So the first and the most important starting phase, or the most important important, and rather the mouth of the funnel, the biggest chunk or the biggest part of the entire ecosystem, is something called as sensitizing bodies, awareness bodies, or communities. If you are somebody who is an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe a student, I'm sure you would have been, or you would have been a part of some online community, some offline community, some local entrepreneurial group, maybe a Head Start, maybe a NEN, somebody that would have sensitized you to be or take entrepreneurship as a career. So sensitizing bodies come on number one, right? Then of course, the second thing that comes into the picture is support organizations. Now once you have been sensitized enough, once you are aware enough, once you know that okay, now I want to choose entrepreneurship as a career, you go out there to seek support. The lowest hanging fruit in terms of seeking support is incubators and accelerators. Now these incubators can be in college, can be run by private organizations, can be run by some government organizations, can be run by in a public private partnership. I will go deep into that in a bit. All right, then once you have an idea, once you've figured out whether you want to be an entrepreneur or not, and you go to incubator, the most important thing you also need is service providers. Now who are service providers? These are the people who enable you and equip you with different services so that you can build your business successfully. We will take a deep dive into this as well. Very, very important. It is important to understand and also understand the difference between a mentor, consultant, and a service provider. So we will take a deep dive into that as well, right? Then once you're building the company, you also need individual people who can guide you, smart people, intelligent people, experienced people, most importantly, who can help you to figure out what can go wrong and where can you go wrong. These are mentors, advisors. You can go get them from mentor network. So these are the people who can help you with that. Then once you are matured enough, you have funding agencies to give you the money. Now they can be very, very early stage funding agency, like a seed fund body, or it can be a matured institutional equity, private equity venture firm. There's an entire spectrum out there. We'll talk about that in a bit, right? Then most importantly, you want clients, you want business. You maybe, if you're a B2B company, B2C company, that's a different ball game altogether. If you're a D2C company, D2C, it's a different ball game altogether. But a lot of times, if you're building enterprise product, enterprise solutions, you would want to do pilots, right? So there are corporates, big corporates, small businesses, mid-sized businesses with whom you can do pilot opportunities, with whom you can do business development. And last but not the least, one thing that rules it all: facilitation bodies and policies by the government. Now these are the institutions and bodies that enables and create policies so that entire system can function correctly. All right, so these are seven broad pointers that I think are critical components and engine of a startup ecosystem, specifically, especially from Indian point of view. If this makes sense to you, can I get a thumbs up, or can I get a reaction in chat, so that I know you are listening carefully and you are understanding everything? The moment I get a thumbs up, I will move ahead and I'll start explaining and exploring with you all of these pointers then in detail. All right, so maybe a quick reaction in chat, and then let us move ahead. All right, I will take a quick 10-second pause here before moving ahead. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So let us quickly move ahead, and let me now start explaining each one of these segments to you in detail. So, number one thing, if you are, as I said, if you are a student, if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, if you are somebody, if you maybe if you're in a job, but if you want to become an entrepreneur, want to explore entrepreneurship as a journey, if you are fascinated by startups, irrespective whether you want to be a full-time entrepreneur or not, I know so many guys who work in a full-time job but come and volunteer with different communities and organizations. Now, what are sensitizing bodies, what are awareness bodies, what are communities? Basically, sensitizing bodies, awareness bodies, and communities are the organizations, clubs, group of potential entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and people who want to learn, discover, understand, build their awareness, build their knowledge around entrepreneurship. Very simply put, for example, even the even the kind of people who follow me, even 9, 10, 12 people who are watching this live with me right now, people who watch my content, people who have subscribed my channel, you guys are also a community, right? So a collective group of people that is dedicated or focused towards one single cause, that is broadly the community, right? So if you are a student, e-cell is a sensitizing body for you, awareness body for you, and the best community for you. So e-cell becomes a very, very critical component there. Then of course, if you are not a student, maybe not student, local and online communities of entrepreneurs again become very critical for you early stage. This is very, very important for early stage entrepreneurs. If you are somebody who is who's in idea stage, pre-idea stage, validation stage, this community will be very, very critical for all of you. Then you have industry bodies like TIE, like EO, like YPO. These are built for matured entrepreneurs. Like BNI, these are all the bodies, sensitizing bodies, awareness bodies, networking bodies, communities that are built for matured entrepreneurs. Then another way you can learn more, be aware, be sensitized, get sensitized is the event. So you can attend online event, you can attend offline event, you can go and attend webinars. Event gives you access to like-minded people, collective of people who are running the ecosystem. So event is another great place to explore, right? Then you have, of course, co-working spaces where multiple people go. They are freelancers, they are service providers, they are entrepreneurs, they are growth stage entrepreneurs, business owners. They collected a space, work together. Co-working space is another great way to learn about entrepreneurship. And most importantly, and very, very critical, something that we should give a credit to for creating startup ecosystem in India, online websites, news websites, and all these websites that are basically news portals that are sharing information with all of us and are sensitizing the Indian youth, Indian aspiring entrepreneur aspiring entrepreneur towards startups. You can also maybe collectively or in a crude sense say YouTubers, WhatsApp videos, short lessons, webinars, they can also fall into the first point or top of the funnel, which is sensitizing bodies, awareness bodies, and communities. That is the first step for you as an entrepreneur, right? This is number one, right? I hope this makes sense to you, right? Now, second, once you have a little more concrete idea, once you have reached a validation stage, or you've built a product, you have some sort of a founder, co-founder, or a team there, right? The first level detailed support you seek, whether you're a student or maybe not a student, you go to a support organization. It can be an incubator, it can be it can be an incubator offering a long-term incubation program, it can be an accelerator offering a program for a short term, it can be accelerator offering a program for a long term, it can be an accelerator program run by an incubator, it can be a sectoral accelerator program, it can be a stage accelerator program. So now let us understand the kind of support organization like an incubator or an accelerator, what they are. So basically you can go and reach out to academic institution based incubators, all your incubators that fall under AIC. All the colleges have e-cell, but there's a far more matured ecosystem back in universities and colleges now where they run incubators. In fact, most of these incubators are also from Atal Incubation Center. Most of these incubators are also by Tide Meaty, right? So there are incubators which are based in academic institutions. If you are a student, I have already done a video on why college is the best time to do a startup. Go and watch that video. These academic institution incubators will definitely for sure support support you. If let's say your college does not have incubator, go and talk to your college authorities, and I think you can build an ecosystem. You can build an incubator. You can hire a consultant who can help you build that incubator. College incubator is the best thing that can happen to a student, right? So academic institution based incubators are the best thing, right? Then of course you have industry backed incubators, right? So a lot of corporates, lot of big companies like Bosch, companies like SAP, companies like Bajaj, all of these companies create their own incubators, create their own accelerator programs, right? Now they can be, as you can see the point number 4, which is underlined and in italics, sector and stage. They can be for specific sector, they can be for specific stage, they can be for anything. So industry backed incubators, industry backed support organizations are also there. All right. Now third is very, very important, government backed incubators. Lot of times, in fact, I don't know how many of you know me. If you don't know me, go and, as I said, follow me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, and also follow me on Instagram. If you go on LinkedIn, if you have been in touch with me, you know that I was a part of Startup Oasis team. Now, Startup Oasis was basically the first incubator, the first technology business incubator in the state of Rajasthan, entire Rajasthan, right? Now, it was a joint venture of RICO, which is the industries department or a industries body of government of Rajasthan, and a joint venture between CIIE, which is IIM Ahmedabad's incubator, right? So CIIE, I was a part of CIIE. CIIE was running the incubator, but RICO was funding. So it was a government-backed incubator, right? So DST, local industries body, and in fact a lot of government departments give fund to run incubators or rather create accelerator programs. So that is also available if you are an early stage guy, very early stage guy into your validation stage, maybe post idea stage, but pre-execution stage. Incubators offer you best of the facilities. Go and hunt the correct one for you. On any of these platforms you will find terms and conditions and all the possible things. In fact, one of the best incubators across the world is Y Combinator, rather they call themselves the accelerator program. So these are the second level support organizations you will be required, you will be requiring, or will, or are there technically as a part of the ecosystem to help you to build your own startup. All right, if this makes sense, keep on giving me your reaction in the chat so that I know you are able to understand everything. Wherever you have a question, please drop your question in the chat. I will pick them up as soon as we finish this part of the conversation, right? So third, now this is again very interesting, right? There's an entire category of ecosystem player called a service provider, right? So imagine if you want to start a business, if you want to start a startup, whether you are a startup, whether you're a business, you need to register a legal entity. Therefore, you need a chartered accountant, a lawyer, legal support around your IP, which is your intellectual property. So you need to take and you need to go and reach out to somebody who's a legal expert, somebody who can get your legal entity registered, somebody who can get the MOU created, somebody who can create other sort of material so that you are legally allowed to do the business. In a lot of cases, what also happens, guys, in a lot of cases, that you also have to take certain licenses from the government. Let us say you are selling food materials, you need a food inspector license, right? And stuff like that. And that again depends on sector by sector and stage by stage. So legal and IP is the number one service provider that you will be needing. Second is, very simply put, HR and compliance. You will be running a team. There'll be a few people who are a part of a team. When you hire somebody, when you employ somebody, when you are employer, there are legal repercussions of that. You need HR policies, you need compliance policies, both for your employee safety, both for the legal and emotional and other sort of safety. So you need HR and you need compliance, and they are also driven by government policies and rules. So you need HR service providers, right? Third and most important, you need technology service providers. Now you cannot do everything yourself. Let us say even if you're a technology company, despite being a technology company, you would want to buy a domain, you would buy a server, you would want to buy or hire a web developer or app developer, or want to get an expert who can build some sort of a deep tech for you, or maybe a hardware for you. The point is there is enough plethora of technical material available out there. And this is just one example I've give you from the technical point of view. If you are a hardware manufacturer, you or a hardware technology company, you maybe you would be wanting a 3D printer, you would be wanting another kind of a hardware material. If you are a food tech company, you need entire setup to build everything for you. So you need technology service providers to help you in that entire journey, because you cannot buy all the machinery yourself. So technology service provider becomes third and very very critical component of the startup ecosystem. And then of course, business is numbers is money. You need somebody to manage your financial account, and even if you are a chartered accountant or a finance professional, you need a third party chartered accountant to make sure you are compliant with all the government rules, maybe GST, maybe a TDS, maybe whatever other government financial protocols which are there, right? So you need guys to basically help you with finance and accounts. So service providers are an entire component of ecosystem in itself. You cannot live without them. No matter whether you're a startup, early stage or growth stage, whether you're a business, these are the people who are a very 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 integral part of the entire ecosystem, right? So like it, if you think this makes sense, give me a thumbs up. Moving ahead, right? Now this is where you need expert opinion. You as an early stage entrepreneur always need a confirmation, expert advice, sometimes also for confirmation bias. So therefore you'll be needing mentors, you will be needing advisors. A lot of times you can reach out to mentors on LinkedIn, a lot of times you can reach out to advisors on LinkedIn. You can onboard them, you can hire them for an hour, you can reach out to them just for one consultation, you can permanently bring advisors on board by offering them certain equity. And you can also reach out to these mentors and advisors via so many mentors and advisory and consulting platforms out there. So there are typically three kind of experts, and I'm repeating, typically three kinds of experts you need to have an access of. What are they? Subject matter experts or domain experts, people who understand what you are building. Subject matter experts and domain experts. Another kind of person you need is the business expert, somebody who can help you create a business model or any and everything around the business. And last but not the least, you need somebody who's a finance expert. So product, business model, and financial mentor. Combine these three things together. This is where you need a mentor for covering all of these things together. Right now, I have, as I said, I have already, and I'm referring back to a few of my videos, back and forth. This is one of the videos that I've done already, which is called as Everything About Startup Mentoring, which is episode number 21 of this series. If you want to learn more about mentoring, if you want to understand deeply about mentoring, who's a great mentor, how to hire a mentor, what can go wrong, what can go good, what should be a criteria or parameter to hire a mentor, go and watch this video, already on YouTube out there for you. Go and watch that. Right now, this is something which is most exciting for everybody, every entrepreneur, everybody who's an entrepreneur, who's a startup guy, would need money, will be looking for money, right? So funding agencies become the most important I would say most important magnet for all entrepreneurs, right? So how can you get money, how can you raise money? Let us start talking about that, right? So let us quickly talk about money, right? So you can always reach out to HNIs or individual angel investors for a smaller chunk of money. These are the people who are either corporate professionals. These are the people who are either wealthy individuals, industrialists, businessmen whom you can reach out to. Simply, I've already done a video on how to find mentors and startup investors mindset. I will, if you want me to, if you want me to let you know more on that, I will share the video link later on as well. It's already on YouTube. But HNIs, individual angel investors, are the people who are the lowest hanging fruit for you. These are the people you should be tapping for small fund, for early stage fund, because the transaction happens quick, right? Then second, when you want to raise a little bigger round, you then need to reach out to angel networks, right? This is basically a consortium or a community of angel investors, primarily wealthy individuals who want to invest in a startup but cannot invest a big ticket size. That means, let us say you want to raise 1 crore, but angel would not want to invest 1 crore. He says, I'll only invest 25 lakhs. So 4 angels will come together and will give you 1 crore rupees, right? So angel networks are second stage or second point when you should start tapping the sorry, let me reframe the statement. What I'm saying is angel networks are basically your go-to place when you are in a little matured stage. When you are looking for a bigger fund, you can go and tap local angel networks. Now almost every city, at least every major city, has their own angel network. There's something called as Rain Rajasthan Angel Investor Network. There's something called as Chandigarh Angels, Hyderabad Angels, Kolkata Angels, Bangalore Angels. Then you have Harvard Angels, Harvard Alumni Angels, Stanford Angels, Indian Angel Network, Mumbai Angels. There's so many already out there. And then when I talk about online, you have Angel.co, you have Let's Venture. There's so many of them already out there. So you can tap online, you can tap offline, you can go to a local community. Enough fund is already available out there. Then, of course, once you reach beyond the angel networks, which means you reach beyond individual people or individual people's money, you reach to seed funding or growth stage or early stage venture capital firms. Now, I will not go into the details of how an angel is different than a venture capital. It's a different business or a different topic altogether. Maybe if you want, go and comment on this video, and I'll rather making a video on how an angel process is different than a formal institutional venture capital. But basically, venture capitalists are corporates. They are investment bankers. They are an institution that fund you, right? So there are early stage, seed stage, early stage venture capital firms. And then if you need so basically anything between couple of crores to less than 20, 25, 30 crores is, these are the guys who will fund you. Growth stage VCs are where basically series A, B, C, D, E deals happen. Tiger, Sequoia, Matrix Partners are growth stage venture capital firm. Now, a word of caution, word of advice, very, very important tip to all of those who are watching me tonight, right? The best time to reach out to any any venture capital fund is, all of these guys have a thesis. All of these guys have a funding strategy, funding thesis available on their website. If you are trying to tap them, my advice is don't shoot your shot in thin air. Go and read the thesis, figure out, do they invest into that sector, figure out, do they invest into that particular bracket, do they figure out are they investing into that particular startup, because they might have a competing company in the portfolio, learn all that, do your research, and then only reach out to them. And the reason why I have put in incubator accelerators already on the screen, and I'm not sure, let me check if you can see the last point as well. Yes, you can see the last point as well. Incubators and accelerators, sometimes a lot of incubators and accelerators also give you the money. So if you, let us say, become a part of a corporate accelerator, they will give you some sort of money. If you become a part of the incubator, they will also give you some money. They're backed by different policies. And last but not least, a lot of government policies, a lot of department policies. We have a policy called Startup India. Recently, PM launched a policy called Seed Fund Policy for Startup India. You have departmental policies. Every state today has a policy of its own, whether it is Startup Rajasthan, Startup Gujarat, Startup Chandigarh, Startup Odisha, stuff like that. And then every individual department also have some sort of fund. Go and do your research, go and do some sort of headhunting. Enough fund is already available out there. This is the reason why I wanted to really go deep into funding, because funding is easily available. It is just that you don't know the right way, or you don't know the right door to kick, right? If you know the right door to knock, the right door to kick, you will very easily be able to get money. But money will not solve your problem. In fact, a lot of times after money, the startup dies. Different topic for different day. All right, make sense? Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the chat. Let me know what is your reaction in the chat. All right, now moving ahead, we're still due and left with two more pointers, and then we'll be talking about unicorns. All right, so then sixth position is corporates for pilots and BD. Now, how will you grow the business is the question, right? When you are building a business, you will need some sort of a big organization, big company, experienced company to back you in some shape and form, and at least give you some sort of a validation. Now, if you are a consumer company, if you are a B2C company, if you are a D2C company, which is direct to consumer, last video that I did was on D2C. Go and watch that if you haven't watched that at this point in time. So if you're building something for enterprise, if you're building a product, if you're building something which is very, very unique to an industry or industry specific, you will be needing corporates for pilot opportunities and business development. You will be needing these guys, my friend. So therefore, you have to create and how do you work with corporates? You, number one, create partnerships, or do cross branding, or do cross promotions, right? Another thing that you can do is you can go for pilot opportunities, right? You can go and write to these guys and go into conducting pilot opportunities. Then third, where a lot of startups get backed by corporates, is collaborative product development. A lot of times these corporates are looking for smart individuals who can build product for them, and also then these products can be implemented in the same organization, and the pilot opportunity can be created. So collaborative product development can also happen. And last but not the least, as I said while speaking about the ecosystem, a lot of corporates also have their own CSRs, grant fund, and accelerator programs, right? A lot of corporates run their own accelerator programs. So therefore, what you guys can do, you guys can reach out to corporates if you already are in a mature stage, post validation stage, or you are a product ready company. Go to corporates and they will be able to support and back you. Word of advice, word of caution: none of this will be easy, right? If you think this can be done overnight, if you write to a corporate today and the problem will be solved, no, this will not be happening. Basically, this will take hell lot of time. This will take a hell lot of headhunting. But well, that's the life of an entrepreneur. That is what you signed up for. All right. And last but not the least, and the most exciting part, and the most cluttered part, most difficult part to understand, most difficult thing to crack. But if you are able to crack that, well, you are in a great place, my friends, which is facilitation bodies and policies by the government, right? So there is a national level policy in India. There's something called a Startup India policy. As I said, the PM has recently launched something called a seed fund for under Startup India. That is already available. Then you have a state level policy. Sorry, I misspelled that. It's not stage level, it's state level, right? So there's a state level policy. Every state has their own policy. Even in a state, if there's a policy which is governing it all, there's also a department level policy. Even let me rather deconstruct department level policy for all of you at a national level. So for example, a lot of incubators are under Atal Innovation Mission, and the incubators are called Atal Incubation Centers, which are under Niti Aayog. But if you compare, or if you look on the other side, a lot of incubators are also run by MeitY, which is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and these are called tied incubators. So even at a national level, different government bodies or different departments rather have different fund for entrepreneurship development, incubation development, startup development, and you can always go and leverage. As I said, this is pure headhunting. This is pure research, pure analysis. Go and figure this out. If you're able to crack that, you are in a great place. So you have a national level policy, you have a state level policy, you have a department level policy, and one thing that kind of is the best implementation ever: public private partnership programs. A lot of times government, in fact, startup oasis was in a crude sense was the outcome of public private partnership, right? A private CIA is a private body. Technically, in the worldly sense, it's a private body. Government industrial department said then, hey, let's partner and build an incubator, and this public private partnership program led to the creation of first technology business incubator in Rajasthan. All right, so these are 7 steps, quickly summarizing everything for you. Sensitizing bodies, which will be entry level funnel for all of you. Support organizations, and if I can change the screen presence for a second, yes, I think this will give you a kind of a better view of mine, right? So sensitizing bodies, number 1; support organizations, number 2; service providers, number 3; mentor networks, number 4. Then of course I go and watch this video. Funding agencies, number 5; corporates and other organizations for pilot and business development; and last but not least, funding bodies and policies by the government. These are 7 broad components, starting from the widest, the largest, the easiest accessible, to the most complicated, to the most comprehensive, to the most difficult one when it comes to startup ecosystem. All right, especially from the Indian point of view. So if this all makes sense to you, drop your comments, maybe drop a boom, drop a thumbs up in chat, and let me know you're still watching. I hope this all makes sense to you, and this was able to give you a broader perspective about how Indian startup ecosystem in general works. Does this make sense to you? Drop your comments in the drop your comments in the live chat, and then we will move ahead. All right. So let us, as I promised, as I said, we will be exploring unicorns in India, right? And why it is important, I will tell you the reason why. Let me share one more presentation or slide with you, then I'll help you explain. All right. And now is the time you can start posting your questions, guys. If you have any questions, make sure you start posting questions. I'm not sure if you're able to read it clearly. Let me see if I can you read it. Can you guys read it clearly? Okay, all right, fantastic. So this is the reason I wanted to speak about unicorns. So, uh, as I said, uh, unicorns or creation of a unicorn is basically a different beast altogether. You never plan to create a unicorn, or you technically never create a unicorn, right? Somebody, as I was reading, said that Baiju's valuation is inflated, right? Of course, you know valuation is a very different ball game altogether. I'm not sure how many of you know about this, but maybe for the you know just generally, I can let me share these two links with all of you so that you guys can maybe later on have a look, and all those who are here can uh, go and check it out. So I run this workshop called Power Camp, right? And the reason why I'm telling you, it's a monthly workshop that I host, where I train startups in creating pitch decks, but most importantly, also train them in understanding financial model. And this is one of the discussions that came this morning when we were doing this workshop, where people were really fascinated about the valuation thing. And during the financial modeling, this is the point I was trying to tell them, that boss, valuation and wealth creation is different business altogether than running a business and raising early stage capital. The reason I wanted to show you this diagram is that if you look at them, analyze most of them, if you look at the sector, most of them are either aggregators, marketplaces, but most importantly, heavily technology driven. Look at these four companies that have recently entered the unicorn club. I think there are three. I think there was one more, but three are of course there, right? Marketplace, that means technology company. Data analytics, that means technology company. And digital is of course a technology company. None of the unicorns can be created without technology backing. Let us look at the 2020 unicorns. Let us look at the 2020 unicorns. All right. So you have Glance and Mobi Content News. That means technology as a platform for content delivery. Content delivery. Spine Salute Management, again, technology software online discovery platform. Again, Cars24 technology platform, online discovery platform. Paytm purely technology. An Academy highly at tech. SaaS tech. E-commerce tech. Pine Lab payment tech. I don't know why Razorpay is not in this list, but this should give you a broad idea. If you want this list, I can share this list with all of you. And on that note, this is basically the session that I have for you. So the idea behind this entire session is, if you're still watching, the idea behind this entire session is to give you a broad perspective of how startup ecosystem works in India, and how can you understand and deconstruct and leverage it for building your own business, right? I hope this makes sense to all of you. I'm open to questions. Please start posting your question in the chat, and then once I've answered all the questions, we will wrap today's session. If you haven't liked the video, once again, please make sure you like the video, subscribe the channel, help me spread the word. Somebody said, growth tuber said, your content is great, make more valuable videos. Of course, that is the idea. I'm trying to now start making, I'll be very soon be starting making short videos. So thank you so much, Grow Tuber. Really appreciate your comment. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much for the nice comment. Please make sure you help me spread a word about it, right? Tanu has a very interesting question. In fact, let me parallelly open my YouTube channel also, so that I can show you the reference videos that I want you to watch. All right. So let me open the channel and share the screen back with all of you. 5 more minutes, folks, and then we wrap the session. All right. All right. So Tanu says, best sector to start up in this 10 upcoming year. See, Tanu, if you want me to give you the idea that what is a sector that will perform well or great in next 10 years, I don't know. You know, if you look at today's time, you can't technically be even predict for a year or two, because look at what happened in 1 year. And this is one thing I always tell to entrepreneurs, that imagine if somebody would have come to you last January or February, and that person would have said to you that, hey, do you want to start a cafe, or what do you think about the travel business? Travel was a hot market, cafe business was a super hot market. And then what happened? COVID hit, and the travel collapsed, event industry collapsed, food space, hospitality sector collapsed. The point I'm trying to make is, you can't predict for 10 years, but if you really want to predict for 1 year or maybe 2 years, I can tell you what to do. So I have done a video called Hot Business Sectors in 2021. If you can see my screen, you will be able to see this video, this one, the hot business sectors. I would suggest you go and watch this video. This video will give you an idea that what are the hot sectors currently in the market that you can work around and start building the business. Again, unicorns are a different beast altogether, but in order to create a profitable business, I'm sure this video will give you enough insights. And then of course you can simply do Google research. You will be able to get. But to quickly answer, I think pharma, edtech, edutech, food tech, food tech, niche e-commerce, uh, SaaS product, esports, e-gaming, uh, OTT, content over digital. These are the hottest sectors. Go and start building a business in this. All right. I hope, Tanu, this answers your question. Okay. Does government plays an important role in building a startup? What about Modi government? Okay. So, very interesting question. See, irrespective of the fact whether it is Modi government or any other government basically plays a very, very critical and important role in building a startup, because they are the ones who defines the policies. They are the one who run the economy. But having said that, one positive thing that I want to talk about Modi government, which I personally believe, is that BJP government, Modi government has been really, really pro marketing, right? For the startup ecosystem to grow and to really uh, expand at such a large scale. I think we could only do that because startup ecosystem really expanded by leaps and bounds in past 5-7 years in India. And I would give the credit to the Modi government for that, for launching policies like Startup India, Invest India, Make in India, and stuff like that. Now you can always debate, and you can always argue that, hey, they are good, they are bad, the policies were great, the policies were not that great, nothing happened, a lot of things happened. There's always a gray area, there's always a room for debate, and I accept that. But the point is, and this is something you should be listening, all of you should be listening very, very, very carefully. Having said that, even considering the gray area, as I said in my today's session, for early stage entrepreneur, all right, I hope now you guys can see me. Let me check if we are live already. I think there's something happened with the internet, but all right, I hope now you guys can see me. Okay, all right. I think it's working now. Can other people give me a thumbs up? Let me check and I will move back on to answering the questions. All right, I think we are live now. Okay. Sorry for the trouble, folks. Don't know what happened. Bad connection. Okay. So coming back to the question, back to the question, as I was saying, see, for you at an early stage, the most important factor that will drive or enable you to grow or not is going to be the sensitization and awareness on the ground. And one thing, as I said, the great thing that happened, because the hullabaloo was so much that any and everybody started talking about startup, right? Nobody spoke about startup India, startup in the world at such a massive and a grand stage, right? So the point is, I think, yes, government plays a very, very critical role, but the most important role that the government plays is making or building the ecosystem, creating a level playing field for people, and that is the government was able to do successfully. And then, of course, it is ultimately your expertise as an entrepreneur, your capability as an entrepreneur, your skill set as an entrepreneur, your sector that makes or breaks the game for you, right? I hope this answers the question. Uh, 3D printing will be more trending. Yes, of course, 3D printing will be a really hot sector in this decade. But again, 3D printing, if you're not able to create a indigenous 3D printer, and if you're not able to figure out a specific business model, 3D printing generally is not scalable. In fact, 3D printing has been there for a lot of time out there, but 3D printing is somehow not scalable, and the mass adoption is still due for 3D printing. So wherein the idea is great, it's exactly like what people, remember a point in time when people were crazy about IoT, right? Now IoT is not a sector. IoT is a backing technology. Similarly for AI ML, right? They are a part of the tech, part of the deep tech. So it doesn't matter whether the 3D printing will work or not. If it's not a part of the hardcore main business model, it will not function. All right. uh, then I will quickly pick up a few more questions and then we can wrap. Uh, Rahul Banerjee asks, what is actually startup ecosystem? Rahul, I hope, I'm not sure when you joined the video, or uh, maybe later on you joined it. Go and watch the video right from the beginning. I have tried and explained what is the startup ecosystem, and I think the entire, if you watch the entire video right from the beginning to the end, you will be able to get the answer. If you somehow have any more questions once the video ends, leave the comment and I will reply back onto that, right? Skamir, I don't know what is your question. Startup team management and co-founder inquiry, please detail. I don't know what do you exactly mean by that. I'll pass this question on. And last question from Raj. Why do we hardly hear of a product-based startup? Are angels less likely to invest in a product than service startup? See, again, uh, will you call Paytm a service company or a product company? Will you call Flipkart a service company or a product company? What will you call Myntra, right? So what is, and if you're looking at a product from the hardware point of view, it's a different ballgame altogether. But if you are looking at a product, in fact, services company are difficult to raise money. It's difficult for a services company to raise money vis-a-vis a product company. Now, in the first video ever, as I was saying, again, let me quickly share the screen. This is the video I was talking about. If I can share the screen once again, and you can see the first video ever, how to start a startup. This is the video I'm talking about, how to start a startup, right? This was the first ever video. Go and watch that video. Right now, what that video will do is, it will, in that video I've explained that what are the types of startups, right? So if you look at a modern technology enabled product company or services company, that is what investors are looking for. Basically, they're looking for likes of Ola, Uber, Paytm, Flipkart, Zomato. They're looking for likes of that. They're not looking for IT services companies, or they're not looking for hardcore product companies like a hardware company, as somebody said, 3D printing, because they are really, really difficult to expand and scale. That's why typical VCs don't invest into that, right? All right, it's already 1 hour 11 minutes. I hope this was useful to all of you. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this is the time to wrap today's session. I have kind of answered all the questions. I think I gave you enough information about startup ecosystem today. I hope this was very beneficial. So on that note, thank you so much once again for joining me on this session of AMA with DNK, episode number 30th. We have been able to reach such a fantastic landmark. We are 1,000 subscribers plus. We have done 30 videos on this long form of content, English content, and we are doing pretty fine, I believe. So thank you so much for to all of you who have been regular watchers of the channel, regular watch of the content, regular supporters. Really, really appreciate and thank all of you. Uh, we'll start making smaller and shorter videos very soon. March and April looks exciting. A lot of exciting things coming your way. Stay tuned, stay excited. Have a great weekend and keep on learning, keep on building a startup. Go and start consuming good content. Last thing I want to tell all of you before I wrap, I'm not sure how many of you know about this or not, but if you don't know, I also host a podcast called Cracking the Code. If you can see the screen very, very quickly, I host, if you see this series, I host people who come from a hardcore, unconventional background who have done something phenomenal in their life. My last guest was Kuntal Joyshore, who's a vegan mountaineer. This guy has reached Mount Everest twice, right? Very, very difficult feat to achieve. So go and for all of you guys, again, let me share this link in the chat. Go and start consuming good content. Go and watch this podcast. It's also on Spotify. It will be great if you guys can subscribe to that podcast as well. That will be really great for me. On that note, thank you so much for being a part of tonight's session on Aim with DNK. Have a great weekend. Keep on building a startup. Keep on learning new things. Keep on asking your questions. And see you next Saturday or Thursday, maybe. I don't know. Next Saturday on next episode of Aim with DNK. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. This is Dilnawaz Khan signing off. Thank you so much and good night. Bye bye.